It seemed as though Jim Jones was quickly becoming a pariah in his own field, but even celebrities began to gently criticize him, with some liking tweets that denounced him and others unfollowing him on social media. Within minutes, remarks began to stream in. One fan commented, "This isn't it, Jim. Your son is hurting and you post this." Another fan wrote, "So disappointed in you. We thought you were different." According to insiders, the situation was much more tense behind the scenes. They claimed that Jim's son had started speaking with a therapist after the incident, with encouragement from his mother and a close family member. Remain resilient and take control of the narrative, assisting him in realizing that he no longer needs to live in his father's shadow. According to one source, that might be the start of his discovering his own voice. Rumors were circulating that Jim's son was conducting an open interview regarding his. This proposal rocked the fan base, and if he did choose to speak up, it could permanently damage Jim's reputation. However, other admirers believe it was long overdue. One fan remarked, "He's been silent for too long. Deserves to be heard." As these allegations grew, Jim reportedly became more irritated, feeling as though the world had flipped upside down and that everyone, not just his son, had betrayed him. Chen's inner circle quickly began to dwindle, with one former buddy writing against him. It seems like everyone has forgotten all the good he's done. All they care about now is this one moment. While Chrissy was trying everything she could to settle the problem, years were abruptly pulling away out of fear of being caught in the crossfire. She allegedly repeatedly contacted Jim's son to inquire if he'd be amenable to having a private talk, even though he didn't reply immediately away. According to sources, he didn't totally close the door either. He's wounded, but he still loves his dad. One insider said, "Family." Despite this, Jim was clearly hurt. A scheduled appearance at a significant music festival was subtly cancelled, and companies that had worked with him began to turn away out of worry. For one business spokesperson responded negatively by saying, "We support artists, but we also have a responsibility to stand against violence, no matter who it involves." Although Jim wasn't named specifically, everyone knew who he was around when other surprising developments started to emerge. In an emotional TikTok video, a former nanny who had worked for the family while Jim's kid was a child came forward, saying she wasn't surprised by what transpired. She remarked in a somber whisper, "I hope he finds healing from the things that broke my heart." After her video went viral overnight, the conversation suddenly shifted from outrage to empathy to rage to concern. Speculate on whether Jim was a villain or just a broken man who never dealt with his own problems. Whether his kid was lashing out or finally standing up for himself. Whether this was a single violent incident or the result of years of unresolved pain. Fans were uneasy as the boundaries between the attacker and the victim seemed to blur after years of pain and other deeper questions. But some held on to optimism. One popular comment thread underneath a viral video read, "Maybe this is rock bottom, and perhaps they can rebuild from here. Families fight and it's ugly, but they can still find a way back." As feelings continued to run high and public sentiment fluctuated sharply, Jim and his son stayed silent in public. Interviews, live streaming, and declarations from others who weren't so understanding and said they were done helping Jim permanently. But the story wasn't finished yet because just when everything looked to be coming to a climax, an unexpected guest who no one had seen in years showed up. Arrived at Jim's house late one evening. The city was asleep and the house was silent, but Jim, who had been sitting quietly in the living room, sipping a drink and reading the never-ending stream of remarks about him, felt as though the knock was heavy and urgent. when he heard 3. "A lecture is not necessary for me," Jim said, closing the door without waiting for an invitation. His brother said, "No, but you need someone who isn't afraid to tell you the truth." The tension in the room was high these days. We're two guys who had blood ties but had hidden years of hostility. They sat across from each other silently for a time before the conversation began to reveal long-buried layers. They talked about their early years. Jim's brother reminded him of how they used to dream of success together, until celebrity turned everything sour. "You were never good at admitting when you were wrong," his brother remarked, referring to their father's and Jim's relentless push to be the head of the household. "But now is your chance to remedy before it's too late." Jim bit his lip and turned away. "You may not be aware of the whole situation, but I can recognize suffering when I see it. And that boy is hurting you, even if you may not be able to see it. He is afraid of you, Jim. And whether you like it or not, that's your fault." Outside the house, paparazzi had set up camp, and the front of Jim's house now looked like a battle zone with cameras. Those remarks struck a deep chord, and Jim stayed silent for a time, perhaps struggling to digest the truth of what he'd become in his son's eyes. When followers on the internet spotted a fuzzy photo of the unidentified visitor at Jim's door, speculations started to spread again. Theories about the man's identity and activities included flashing, loud voices, and cameras looking for any sign of movement. As stories circulated, it was said that Jim's kid was still hiding and had been living with his mother, refusing to accept any of Jim's calls. However, what stunned people the most was when he revealed that he was a long-lost cousin, a hidden brother, and even an undercover therapist sent by the family. His succinct but powerful remark on his own Instagram account, "I'm not alright, but I will be," was enough to cause a social media uproar. Thousands of people reposted it with love and support, and comments began to stream in with phrases like, "We have faith in yourself and remain resilient." Rapper who has collaborated with Jim wrote, "Accountability, not quiet, is what loyalty is all about." Celebrities began taking sides. Some defended Jim, saying that the public should stop making fun of black fathers, and that they didn't know about the entire scenario. The conversation was all over the T Podcast Clubhouse during this time. During a family cookout last year, Jim and his son got into a heated argument. The newly leaked video, which was obviously taken on someone's phone, showed Jim ranting and smashing a glass on the table when his son appeared. Fans examined every second of the video, describing it as emotional abuse or a family dispute that had gotten out of control. The person was clearly scared, but there was no physical contact. But the atmosphere was explosive. "You have a choice right now." His brother was still trying to persuade him, but it only made the distance wider. Jim scratched his temples and added, "You think I don't feel like a failure? You think I wanted this? Then show it." "Not to me, to him," his brother firmly retorted. After his brother had left to watch the sunrise, Jim was sitting alone as morning broke. His phone was beeping non-stop, warning him of missed calls and news. But he decided to disregard them all and open the one message that truly mattered to him. A photo of his toddler child eating chocolate with a smile. The following day, Jim took an uncommon decision. Rather than posting on Instagram or Twitter, instead of publicly yelling, he discreetly called a crisis management-focused family counselor and set up an urgent session. It was a modest but essential step, and although if the internet was not aware of it at the time, something had changed with his kid. Friends close to him and his own emotional journey revealed that he had been journaling daily in an attempt to absorb the hurt, betrayal. Just when fans believed the dust was beginning to settle, another unexpected twist surfaced, this time involving a hidden recording that threatened to shatter any prospect of peace. During therapy sessions, they claimed Jim hadn't done enough, but the question persisted. Fans initially discovered the covert recording, which was made just 2 days after Jim had set up that urgent counseling session on a celebrity gossip website. The audio clip was only 2 minutes long, but its substance was enough to spark a new round of mayhem. The caption simply wrote, "You won't believe what Jim Jones said behind closed doors." And the video had gained a reputation for revealing real-time drama. Now play the recording of Jim complaining to someone who is unmistakably raw and irate. Jim remarked, "I don't care if he's my blood," referring to a close friend or acquaintance. "I don't care if he's my blood," she said, in a tone that was hurtful, furious, and frustrated. "I won't raise any weak men," Jim remarked. "If you want to talk about your feelings, go cry to your mother." The internet went into overdrive, accusing Jim of emotional abuse and denying any responsibility for the suffering, because Jim had actually stated those comments months prior, during a period of intense family conflict, and the fans were not aware that this footage was completely out of context. At the time, he wasn't talking about his kid. Rather, he was talking about a situation involving a former business partner. In a calm Instagram live, Jim, who often maintains his composure in public, lost his rage when the truth was exposed. "This is foul," he remarked, adding that the audio had been altered, clipped, and presented as fresh. "It's about how far people will go to ruin you, especially when you're trying to do better." But the damage was done. Chrissy, who had been fighting behind the scenes to keep the family together, ultimately said, when Jim's son saw the click, sources close to him said he broke down when he heard it, and he was just starting to trust again. Jim's son was still vulnerable, and people believed what they wanted to think. He left a long note on her page, addressing the situation without naming names, and stating, "Healing isn't pretty." The post went viral on its own, with admirers split between those who applauded her fortitude and those who said, "Families fall apart, but they can also come back together. Stop pouring gasoline on a fire you didn't start." Emotions were running high among those who accused her of helping Jim, and even some of Jim's closest industry pals began to turn away. One former partner openly unfollowed Jim and tweeted, "Protect Black sons." Due to the overwhelming weight of everything, Jim decided to speak to his son directly. The son didn't respond for a few days, and a week later, the media began to report that fans thought that Jim had been rejected because of the silence, but something was happening behind the scenes. The son had been speaking to his therapist daily, attempting to make sense of what he wanted to shout, fight, cry, but above all, he needed clarification. He wasn't sure if he wanted to forgive, but he needed answers. So he ultimately agreed to meet, but only if a qualified mediator led the session. The meeting was held in N. For the first 10 minutes, no one talked at the secluded place, away from the city and flashing lights. Jim looked older than normal, exhausted and worn out, and his son looked guarded, with his arms crossed and his eyes alert. The mediator began hesitantly. "I messed up plainly. I let my pride get in the way of being progression." However, just as the plot was beginning to improve, a source close to the family disclosed a shocking discovery. Reportedly, a court filing had been made behind closed doors, indicating a custody dispute over a joint business endeavor that Jim and his son had been secretly building for over a year. According to the source, the project was intended to be a media organization that sought to elevate youthful voices. It wasn't only personal, it was also professional. Fans were astonished to learn that the father and son had been involved. But once, after everything that transpired, Some fans said they could still do business together, but others weren't so sure. Suddenly, the drama took a different turn because this wasn't just about their relationship deteriorating. Forgiveness raised questions regarding legacy trust, money impact, and if two injured men could get past their suffering. But before any of those answers could be provided, an unexpected person reappeared. This person was none other than Jim's estranged older brother. Freddie had spent years living in the background of Jim's success, preferring to live away from the spotlight and the chaos. However, Freddie had returned, and multiple reports claimed that he wasn't merely visiting. He had, though no one realized that Freddie possessed the piece that could change things. Freddie had been observing the family's drama from a distance, hearing the leaked tape, seeing the altercation, and seeing the extent of the wounds between Jim and his son. The silent partner helped Jim and his son launch their media firm initiative by writing the original goal statement, obtaining cash from private investors, and silently, legally, and drama-free, retaining the contracts when things broke apart. But now that people knew about the company, Freddie saw a chance to step up and compel the two men to complete what they started rather than take over. He asked to meet with them both, but Jim was first reluctant. There were unsolved childhood rivalries, past betrayals, and years of silence that neither brother had dared to breach because his connection with Freddie wasn't exactly easy. Surprisingly, Jim's son accepted it, stating, "Perhaps we should quit behaving," as Freddie wasted no time in saying, "I've got something to show you both," pulling out a packet containing original documentation that demonstrated the three of them had been named as equal partners in the business. That remark alone convinced Jim that they had indeed met in a secret setting. Once more, there were no cameras or members of the media there. Just the three men were seated around a table that was laden with ancient documents, memories, and decades of suffering. Jim leaned back and gazed at His kid appeared confused, and he replied to Freddie, "I didn't know you were involved." He went on, apparently attempting to quiet his own inner tempest. "But you've both been acting like enemies. So it's time to decide if you want to mend the past or burn the future. We're never present, and I hate that, but maybe this is my opportunity to be there, not as your uncle or Jim's brother, but as someone who believes that the two of you can make something happen." The meeting went on for hours. Jim and his son first started talking about problems as partners rather than adversaries, which led to new business ideas and even the notion of filming a documentary about their journey, not for notoriety, but to aid others who might be suffering in silence in broken hearts. The site conjectured about anything from rehab to retirement, but in truth, Jim is still alive and well. "I've harmed individuals I care about, but Jim had stopped posting on social media, had no new songs, and had no interviews." In a 2-minute video clip titled "Rebuild," Jim stated, "I'm not going to run from it. I'm here to say that we're still writing the story, and the next chapter is going to be different." There was no fancy editing or backing music, just Jim sitting on a wooden chair and staring. He was in the process of rediscovery and was giving his best to repairing his relationship with both his son and himself as he walked directly into the camera. The video went viral online with millions of views and hours, and the comment area was inundated with his son posted the video with the straightforward comment, "Let's create the atmosphere," changed immediately. Fans immediately speculated about potential future content, including discussing Jim and his son's journey in public for the first time at a live panel event in New York City. The event was invitation only, but it was broadcast live for the world to watch. The lights went down, and Jim strolled out first, dressed entirely in black. The audience fell silent as Jim ascended the stage, leaving journalists and casual fans wondering if the drama was truly over, or if it was just another show. He continued, "I let my anger speak louder than my love, and I hurt someone who deserved better. It took me losing nearly everything to learn that's not the guy I want to be." His attitude was calm, but serious. Months ago,